can the Office of the Tax Ombud overturn a decision by SARS and objection? So let me give the example. So let's say a taxpayer objects, and let's assume SARS disallows the objection, and the taxpayer is not happy with that. Of course, we know that the next step in the process technically is to file or to note an appeal, as it were. But is there an alternative in terms of complaining to the Ombud and say, but hang on, SARS disallowed my objection. Can you please, Ombud, can you please go to SARS and ask them to look at this because this doesn't make sense to me, right? Because that's typically the complaints we get.
Yeah. Right? So we would look at such. We have received, in fact, complaints where taxpayer would say, I'm not happy with the decision for the objection, and it's because SARS did not allow me time to submit the documents that they requested. For example, we had a practitioner who came to us and said, SARS disallowed my objection. They requested additional supporting documents from me, and they gave me 21 business days to submit such. But within 10 days, they already made a decision to disallow my objection without me submitting the documents. Yes. And they came to the Office of the Tax Ombud because they had already complained with SARS CMO. Right. And SARS CMO said to them, the matter is resolved, without explaining how the matter was resolved. When we investigated the matter, we then found that SARS did not adhere to their time frame in terms of service, of issuing and submitting the documents by the taxpayer. We then asked SARS, you need to withdraw that decision that you made prematurely because you requested the taxpayer to submit specific documents. He was still within the 21 business days to submit such, and you made a decision incorrectly, and withdraw that letter of decision, consider the documents that the taxpayer submitted, and make a proper decision. So that's how we would come in.
Right. So that's, again, that is it's a very nuanced. It's very nuanced in terms of procedural aspect of that. So what you're saying is the Ombud can't say to SARS that your decision is wrong, that you disallowed. But what you can say to them is, SARS, you did not give the taxpayer the time that you, in fact, asked them within which they must give the documents. You didn't allow them that time to respond to that. So give them the opportunity to respond and then reconsider your decision. But what you can't do, my understanding, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, what you can't do is, even if SARS then says, okay, Ombud, what we'll do is we'll reconsider, look at it again, and they say, okay, but we're still going to disallow it. You can't then, my understanding is, the Ombud can't then say to SARS, but no, you must allow the objection.
No, we cannot. We cannot do that because remember, we don't get into the merits of how they made a decision. Because remember, SARS will have information that the tax ombud would not necessarily be privy to. But then the taxpayer has an option in terms of dispute resolution procedures and rules on what else to take, what was the next step, which is to note an appeal.
Okay, so that's good. So again, it's the procedural matter is, SARS, you did not give the taxpayer time to respond. Reconsider your decision, not SARS, you must allow it. So generally speaking, the Ombud can't say to SARS, but you must allow the objection.
No,
it can say to SARS, but hang on, in the procedure that you followed in getting to your decision, something is wrong. Please follow the correct procedure and reconsider. And that's important to understand. So taxpayers can't go to the Ombud and say to the Ombud, but why must I now appeal? Right? They disallowed the thing, now I must appeal. And let's say procedurally, let's say SARS followed procedure correctly, and on the merits, as you say, SARS disallows the objection. The taxpayer, well, I guess they can try, they can complain, but the fact is, I don't think, and you must correct me if I'm wrong, the Ombud has the mandate to say to SARS, no, SARS, you must allow it, you can't force the taxpayer to appeal.
No, the tax ombud does not have authority to do that. What we would then recommend to the taxpayer is to say to the taxpayer, you may note an appeal because you are still not happy with the decision of the objection that was issued to you.
That's good to know. So it's not like the taxpayers can come to you with procedural complaints, and if you reject them, let's say in these circumstances, you'd say, well, I would say reject, but in the sense that you can't really
review them.
So, but you would then say to the taxpayer, no, but your right procedure is this. So there is some guidance. So even if something, is my understanding, even if something is not technically in the Office of the Ombud's mandate, you will give direction.
Yes,
insofar as you can.
And we do that often because what we noted is that ordinary taxpayers who are not practitioners, of course, they don't know these procedures that they need to follow.
Oh, that's
so
good.
we try in our response and engagement with taxpayers that we provide a little bit of taxpayer education, because some of them, they will even say to us that the contact center at SARS did not tell me what to do. And remember, Nico, we have access to SARS systems. So we can even determine and see whether the taxpayer is telling us the truth that he was at the branch and what notes did the SARS officials put there. And in many instances with the complaints that we dealt with, you find that the taxpayer was incorrectly advised. And in such instances, then we would recommend to them and say, you're still within the time frame to note an appeal. Please go to SARS and note an appeal if you don't have access to e-filing.
But I think, and in SARS's defense, you know, although I don't know, you would be in a better position to know. I would imagine that you often do get complaints where SARS is not in the wrong. You know, where taxpayers or tax practitioners have a misperception of what is required and what the rules are. And so often I would imagine you do get complaints that is either premature or where in fact the taxpayer is in the wrong or the tax practitioner is in the wrong.
Yes, we do. And what is of more concerning for us is when practitioners don't know what to do. Because we find complaints where a tax practitioner or a taxpayer would say, I did not know that I was supposed to lodge an objection within this time frame. Or the practitioners, you know, one of the interesting or common response that we get from some practitioners, they would say, we are aware that my client is outside the 75 business days to note an appeal after the decision was made. However, it was not my fault. It was the fault of the previous practitioner. And they asked the judge to use his status as a judge to overrule the decision. And
which of course you can't do.
We can't because it falls within our limitations. So we would then explain to them why we can't review such a complaint.
But that's good. It's not like the Ombud just rejects the complaint and leaves the taxpayer or practitioner hanging, as it were. You will try and give guidance. All right. So another